Hello and welcome to the weekly BB Bobcat Breakdown, where a couple of Texas State students dive into the details of all things Texas State athletic events that occurred each week. And with that in mind, this being our last podcast of the semester, looking back on the semester, we've had such an amazing collection of Texas State students that have been given the opportunity and have really done an exceptional job here on this podcast as guest speakers. It's been amazing to see all these faces come through and really show what Texas State students can really do, and it's been such an amazing experience. But with that in mind, the only way to listen is by learning, the only way to learn is by listening, and the only way to start is by starting. So let's get right into it. I'm your host, Luke Fox. I'm a Texas State student, a sophomore majoring in electronic media.
I'm Alexander Terrier. I'm the producer at GIE and a graduate student of mass communication.
My name is Audrey Pacias. I am a senior here at Texas State and I'm majoring in electronic media.
My name is Benji Villarreal. I'm a senior here at Texas State and I am majoring in electronic media.
My name is Katie Trevino. I'm also a senior here at Texas State and I'm majoring in digital media.
And let's do a quick recap, or not a recap, but introduction to what we're going to be covering for this podcast, as we have a lot to cover. With the last week having Turkey Day and there just being a lot of time whenever we didn't have the podcast, so we're going to be covering over the games for the last 2 weeks rather than the normal 1 week. And with that being said, there are 14 games that we're going to be covering. First off, we're going to go into Texas State football with a loss under Arkansas State and win over South Alabama. Then we're going to go into volleyball, playing at the Sun Belt Tournament, and their start at the NCAA Tournament. Then we're going to go into women's basketball versus UTRGV, Sam Houston, A&M Corpus Christi, and finally UTSA. And then lastly, we're going to end it off with men's basketball with them playing against UTSA, McNeese, and then Southern Utah, UT Arlington, and finally UT. A lot of UTs in there. And with that in mind, let's get into this first sport.
The first sport that we're going to be covering, like Luke said, is Texas State football. And the first game that we're going to be covering is the Texas State football versus Arkansas State. They surrendered 77-31, loss on the road. Poor Bobcats. I know that had to hurt, especially for TJ Finley, but it did not for the Arkansas State. What is their mascot?
The Wolfpack?
The Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay, but Texas State allowed seven rushing touchdowns, 3 defensive touchdowns, and a kick return for a touchdown in the 77-31 loss. Like I said, the Bobcats now dropped to 6-5 in the overall record and 3-4 to SBC, along with the Red Wolves. Oh, it's the Wolves. Sorry, guys. It is 6-5 overall record and a 4-3 record in the SBC. It was the first time Texas State allowed a touchdown in all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams, since 2017. That's about, I would say 7 years ago, which is
7 years.
absolutely insane. Yeah. Texas State ended up running 36 more plays in offense compared to Arkansas State in the game due to the defensive and special teams touchdowns in the second half. The Bobcats outgained the Red Wolves 539 to 587. OMG. And they had a season high of 366 passing yards.
Yeah, looking at this, final score of 31-77. I think this is the biggest loss in terms of point deficit that Texas State has really experienced this season. And this is really being close to the very end of their season at this point, being the second to last game. That was such a major loss, and that was very devastating to look at. But what factors do you guys think that resulted in such a massive point difference in both the teams?
I think the offensive line and defensive lines gave away the game for us. With the offensive line, they weren't protecting our quarterback, and that led to back-to-back interceptions. And the defensive line, they were just getting ran over the whole game. They had Arkansas State had 291 rushing yards. That's just insane.
Yeah, I think the defense really did not just step up where they needed to be, and it led to obviously 77 points. That's a lot of points in a football game. That's actually crazy, and I know a lot of Texas State fans were very upset to see that. As one, I was very upset to see that, especially such late in the season. It looked like Texas State finally gained their rhythm and everything, and then just to see this random big loss really hurt a lot.
I think what it really comes down to is that the game started off very close. First quarter, it was at 10-14, very close. Second quarter, they started to lose it at 17-35, and then they kind of started to lose motivation. Their morale started to drop, and from that, they kind of just gave up on the game almost. And with that, and then that I would say that's a large factor of why they had 2 fumbles, and one of those fumbles being returned. And then on the fourth quarter, like you said, Benji, that there was a 2 interception returns in a row. And at the fourth quarter, that basically took up the fourth quarter, and that at that point the game was far gone, and they had kind of just lost a lot of their spirit. And whenever that happens, they haven't really experienced that much this season. They've been a pretty winning team and then they started, once they got bowl eligibility, they started losing a bunch of games, which was really devastating. They kind of lost that spirit. They have been having a lot of away games since they had that 3 home games in a row, and since that. It's been really a tough time for this team. And I mean, star players, TJ Finley absolutely killing out there with 366 yards, 3 touchdowns. And just looking at the total yardage here, we have 539 total yards for Texas State compared to 487 for Arkansas State. So even though there was such a point deficit, looking at it, Texas State still had more yards, which is very interesting to look at. And that just means that they were kind of getting sloppy there. They were starting to lose that ball, and they just weren't able to finish off these touchdowns. And with that, they started to lose that lead. What else do you guys have to say about that?
I do want to highlight some players here, although we really all said it's a really tough loss, especially coming off of a really good high after a 3-win home game little thing going on there. Took a loss to the Red Wolves. But I mean, Ashton Hawkins absolutely went off. He went for 165 receiving yards on 8 catches, his career high. Cole Wilson, who's also a wide receiver, he led the team with 10 receptions for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Joey Hobart, Joe Dirt, when did we not talk about this man? He had other receiving score for the Bobcats, and he finished off with 7 catches and 43 yards.
I will say that after the second quarter is 35-17 going to halftime, and I feel like that's the moment where the coach comes in and gives a little pep talk to the team and to go back in the second half and have a better game. But clearly that didn't happen, and GJ Kinney said in the post conference that he admits that he's taking blame for this loss just because he felt like that him and the coaches didn't prepare well for this game.
Yeah, I saw that. The report after the game, he just thought that with the turnovers and the kickoff return and all that stuff, that the 70 points that they gave up, they just have to be better as coaches and what they do. And he agrees he said that injuries are of course part of it, but he's never going to blame that. And so, yeah, he did take responsibility for that loss.
But let's end this loss with a win. With Texas State playing against South Alabama, this was a home game, November 25th, with a final score of 52-44 win. And now this was the first win in a while for Texas State after they had achieved bowl eligibility at 6 wins. And even though it was a while since a win, it was still a close game, and they were able to come out strong and have a really great game with TJ Finley absolutely killing out there with 368 yards, 3 touchdowns compared to Desmond Trotter for South Alabama with 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. And it's been really amazing. And I just wanted to mention, we didn't really talk about him a lot in a little while. We had Mahdi out there with 97 rushing yards, making it his total 1,209 yards for the season. And this has been the most yards for a while since Claudia Mathis in 1997 for Texas State. That's such an amazing feat, having the most rushing yards in basically 26, 27 years. Absolutely amazing, killing it out there. But what are some reasons that you think that Texas State was able to gain this lead over South Alabama?
I think they were just tired of hearing all the snarky comments from the past game, because literally the game before that you lost 77-31. We literally just covered. You're going up against an SBC school, same division and everything. You see them multiple times, and then you're getting all this hype for this year and this season, and then you take a loss like that, bro. Come on, you don't want to end off the season, especially for the seniors out there. I know they had senior night, which was really emotional. Some of these college players don't want to just go out on a loss. They're no, we're going to bring it back up. We're going to get motivated. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And they did. They killed on the field, offensively, defensively, special teams, whatever. So huge stuff for them. They just wanted to honestly come back and not end the season off on a loss.
This was definitely a full team effort. The offense, I mean, the first touchdown was a fumble return by the defense by Caleb Culp, and that I literally was there recording the game, and I was shocked because part of me wasn't paying attention, but after that, I think they just started finding their rhythm. TJ Finley in the offense finally went on, and TJ Finley ended up breaking the record for most passing yards in a season with 3,287, which was the last was in 2003. So that was a long record being waiting to be broken. And then the defense just came out with 5 sacks, and I mean that was a big improvement from the Arkansas State game.
Yeah, I know that they came in swinging at the beginning, and that they like first quarter score was 24-0. Like that's just insane. I know a lot of the fans were happy to see that, and it was the first time that, or not the first time, but the Bobcats scored 50+ points for the third time just this season, thanks to the offense, and that totaled 479 yards. And so I know like it looked like they were starting to come back there in the third quarter. About like it looked like it was getting close again, and I know that the team just had to come together and just say, "Hey guys, you're at like senior night." Like they're tired of hearing everything. Like they just like took full control of that game.
Yeah, they respectfully shut up the Jaguars for sure, dude. Yeah, they scored 50+ points for the third time this season, thanks to the offense that totaled, like we said, 479 yards. And then just players to highlight: Ashton Hawkins, Denario Davenport, and Cole Wilson for all these touchdown connections. Both Hawkins, he had 5 receptions, 131 yards, and Wilson for 6 receptions and a career high of 102 yards, went over 100 yards for receiving. For Hawkins, it was his second straight game with 100 yards. You know what I mean? Like, these Bobcats have so much drive. They don't want to just be like, oh, let's give into it. You know, we had such a bad season last year. Like, oh my God, let's not show them that we're not that team anymore. Like, we got GJ Kinney now. We got TJ Finley. We have outstanding players like Joey Hobart, Cole Wilson. Like we said, defensively, we have Ryan Holloway. You know, we have people like that. Like, let's utilize them. Let's, like, respectfully, like I said, let's shut them up.
And with that being the last game of the main game before going into the bowl, we had Texas State won 2 FBS records with most points in the season at 432 and most yards on offense at 5,661. Very impressive for Texas State and very amazing.
I just want to say one more thing. I mean, six Bobcats were selected for 7 all-conference selections, and that's the most since 2008 for us.
Wow, yeah, it's just been record after record for this season. Whether it be like getting bowl eligibility for the first time in many, many years. I believe it was like 2008 or 2005 was one of those. And it's just been records after record after record. And it's just been so amazing to see this for Texas State, as we haven't really seen this in a while. And so it's been really amazing. But with that being said, we don't quite know the bowl destination yet. That will be determined on December 3rd. But let's get into our next sport.
The sport that we will be covering is the Texas State women's volleyball team against Marshall. An absolute sweep for the Texas State Bobcats. They traveled to Marshall in its opening game for the 2023 Sun Belt Conference Tournament. After a bye in the first 2 rounds as the number 1 seed in the West Division, the Bobcats opened the tournament with a statement sweep against the number 4 seed in the East. Things like Samantha Wunsch, Ryan Torres, Jackie Lee, Ryan Torres again, you know, they're going off this whole season. Match notes. They finally advanced after the sweep to the semifinals for the 11th straight year. Since the Bobcats joined the SBC in 2013, they have never made the tournament series finale.
And it wasn't just a sweep. I mean, just looking at the sets, it was 25-13, 25-14, 25-11. These were like absolute dominations. The Texas State didn't give Marshall a chance in this. Like you said, Samantha Wunsch. Bailey Hanner also doing really amazing with 9 kills and 5 blocks. And it was a really great time for Bobcats, really killing it out there for the Sun Belt Tournament, this being the first match in the Sun Belt Tournament.
Texas State, after this game, had 45 kills, 8 blocks, and 6 aces, and 3 of those aces came from Ryan Torres, which is really impressive.
Yeah, Samantha Wunsch, is that how you say it? She had 11 kills, which is like a lot compared to like what she's had before. I don't know if that's her career high, but as you said, Bailey Hanner hit her career high, which is really nice. And then the head coach had 95 career wins, so That was good.
Sean Hewitt's been doing absolutely amazing out there. And Texas State then played against James Madison for their second game in the Sun Belt tournament and had a very close and an unfortunate loss at 2-3 set loss. And Samantha Wunsch absolutely killing it. And look at this, 20 kills, 7 blocks. Keep in mind this was a very long game. It was really drawn out. It just went back and forth. Samantha Wunsch absolutely killing it. KJ Johnson right behind with 19 kills and 3 blocks. And Jay DeFrey, I can't give too much. I can't get enough credit for Jay DeFrey with a career high blocks of 11 blocks. She's been a staple for this team for this entire season, absolutely killing it on the defense with those blocks. But with this loss, this led to the end of the Sun Belt tournament for the Bobcats.
Yeah, it's not the end of the Sun Belt tournament, but they did come up for the NCAA D1 women's volleyball tournament. We're going to get into that really quickly. Against SMU, they played their first game Friday night, and they unfortunately took a loss out of 3 sets. But we did have some highlights, of course, from the redshirt freshman Samantha Wunsch. KJ Johnson and Maggie Walsh, they had an outstanding game and an outstanding season. Although this is really sad and everything that they're done, but hey, look, the Bobcats have 12 prior appearances in the NCAA tournament, including, dating back from 1986 to the most recent one being in the 2020 fall season, playing to the spring of 2021, And the Bobcats' first appearance in the NCAA tournament was in 2020. So seeing this SMU team, new faces, new roster, it must have been a real shock for the Bobcats. And the last time they faced off SMU was in the 2017 season, where the Bobcats fell 3-2. Unfortunately, we did fall 3-0, which was not something we did want to see. But the Bobcats have a 4-5 record against SMU, so we really did expect a win out of this one. But, things happen. The girls had an outstanding season regardless, and I am so proud of them.
Yeah, I think even the game, it was close by the sets, first set, SMU 25, Texas State 20, then 25-19, 25-16. So it wasn't a complete total loss. I thought they did very well finishing the year with a 20-10 record. That's impressive. And like you said, Audrey, very impressed with this team and how they handled themselves. And I think going on later into the future, they're only going to get better with more recruits that they get from this exposure and everything. I thought it was a great season for the girls.
This is a very young team, so they're definitely going to be growing from this experience. I think it is just a little disappointing that they didn't win a set. Coach Sean Hewitt said that to beat the best, you got to bring your best. So I think they just learned from this and grew as a team.
Yeah, even Sean Hewitt said that he was a little frustrated tonight, and in his words, I didn't think that was the best performance. And really looking at the stats, I'm looking at the hitting percent right here with Texas State at .158 compared to SMU's .32, and that's just a major difference. And really, whatever comes down to it, they just weren't able to get those hits and get the finish off with those kills, and with that, they just weren't able to get those sets. And whenever you're falling behind like that, and even if you're having close sets, it can be really hard to really stay on top of the game. But with that being said, they are now finished with their season with that NCAA tournament, but it'll be really interesting to see how they're able to pick it up next year. All right, we're now going to go into our next sport. Next sport being women's basketball, being a Texas State versus UTRGV home game, November 17th.
Texas State opened up their season with a 3-0 record after beating UTRGV 66-63. Janiah Henson had a career high 15 points, but 7 different players contributed in the third quarter to keep their lead for the game. And rebounding was a key win for this game as they dominated the defensive but also the offensive boards.
Not gonna lie, I thought Texas State would be able to easily beat UTRGV going into it, because UTRGV had a 0-3 record compared to Texas State's now 3-0 record. And I thought it wouldn't be nearly this close, but looking at that free throw percent, Texas State with a .667, which is still impressive. Looking at UTRGV's with a .947, they basically never missed the free throws. And whenever you have so many free throws that were in that game, those points really start to stack up. They really start to add up, and it really makes that final score just get so close. But it's so great that they were able to keep their lossless season so far and be able to maintain that win for Texas State.
Yeah, Jefferson led the team with 9 points in the fourth quarter to be able to get this win, which and along paired with 4 rebounds along to help them get the win. So despite being outscored in the fourth quarter, the Bobcats were able to get the win, which, even though, like you said, Luke, it's not good to see the game so close when it should have been like not an easy win, but a easier win than this. But they still got the win. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, go on, girl. You're good.
No, I was gonna say, moving on to the next game though, we couldn't pull it out with the next game, Sam Houston, Texas State. Sam Houston winning 66-62. I'm not gonna lie, this game Henson came out again with 14 points, Tullis with 11 points. So we see our head leaders out there again, but we just could not pull it through. So now the Bobcats standing here are 3-1.
Yeah, this was their first loss of the season, and it really was once again another back and forth game. Looking at those first 2 games that the Texas State women's basketball team played in, they absolutely dominated against their opponents. But then looking at these last 2 games, it's been very close back and forth, and so it's been really interesting to see how the team's really been able to adapt to their circumstances. And in this case, they just weren't able to take that to get a win.
It was, a back and forth game, and the fourth quarter really showed, as it was a 45-point quarter game, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, even head coach Zanaya Antoni said, first, I want to give a lot of credit to Sam Houston. They changed over their roster similar to us. They have some young women who come in and play really physical. They played really physical last year as well. We had an opportunity to watch them play as this current season goes along. They came in aggressive and it knocked us back. But in the end, they did come out with the L. I mean, it sucks, but we have players like Janiyah Henson sitting at 991 career points for 4 games into her 5th year here at Texas State, along with Tamaya Jefferson having 3 straight double digits scoring night in her first season as a Bobcat. Congratulations to that girl. I know she's ecstatic about that, and she now sits at 946 career points after her first 3 seasons as a Houston Christian.
The next game, well, unfortunately, we lost to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and that was sparked not sparked, but 2-game losing streak. We were down 36-28 after the Islanders went 4 for 5 from 3-point range. As the Bobcats tried sparking a comeback, it just wasn't enough. They shot 3 for 15 in the fourth quarter. But on the bright side, Janiyah Henson did score her 1,000th career point.
Yeah, Henson, Jefferson, and Tullis all scored 10 points for that game, and being the score leaders for Texas State. And even though, and one thing I've noticed for the Texas State women's team is that they don't really always have like that one player. Henson's been great out there, but they're not relying on one player. They have a good, really well-rounded team overall that's really been able to kill it out there. And whenever you have a well-rounded team, there's a consistency there that just isn't there for teams that are relying on one player, and that's very impressive, especially since this team is made up of almost all new players. It's like a team of 8 with 4 returners, or I think it was 8 returners. Let me fix that. Not 8 returners. There were 8 new people that were coming in, and so that was very impressive for Texas State women's. Even though they just had a double loss in a row, they're still an amazing team out there.
Yeah, they lost a lot of their seniors last season, but they're not just gonna rely on Janiyah Henson, or they're not gonna just rely on Tamaya Jefferson this whole time. All the other players are gonna be like, you know what, let me step up. Why am I gonna leave it off to them, So Tamaya Jefferson, just to mention, she had 4 straight double-digit scoring nights in her first season as a Bobcat. Oh my God, I literally just said that. Sorry, guys. Out of the half, the Bobcats battled back, although it was a really bad game. They came off of an 11-4 Islander, highlighted by 4 points by Tamaya Jefferson. The Bobcats brought the score back up to 40-39 in the third quarter. By the end of the fourth quarter, the Bobcats outscored the Islanders with 16-14. But there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and with that being said, the next game being Texas State versus UTSA, a very big game because, as we'll get right into it, men's basketball also played against UTSA, but the final score for the women's basketball being 65-57 win for Texas State, and very impressive win. This was an away game on November 30th at San Antonio, and Jefferson out there having a season high 15 points, Tullius with 12 points, and I think a big factor that really came down to this was Texas State had 8 turnovers compared to UTSA's 12 turnovers, and that's a pretty big difference whenever it comes down to basketball. And that was a big factor that led to Texas State being able to gain a lead and be able to keep that lead towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I know in the overtime the Bobcats took their way and just did not look back. I know with they Foster hit a pair of free throws with under 2 minutes left, and then the Bobcats did not look back after that.
It was their first overtime between each other since December 2019, and Texas State's 6th straight win against UTSA. And it was a good San Antonio reunion for Tiffany Tullis and Jalen Foster as they came back home and played in front of their friends and family. And the coach said that she was a little worried for them because sometimes players play differently when they're playing at home. But it was a good win.
And their next game will be Texas State versus UNT Dallas on Sunday, December 3rd at 3 p.m. This will be a home game at Strahan Arena, so make sure to show up and really encourage our women's basketball team.
Absolutely. And the next game that we're going to be getting into is the Texas State men's basketball game. They came out with a huge win, starting off with UTSA 72-62. Absolutely phenomenal, incredible game. It is Texas State's first win over the Roadrunners since 2018 and the first in San Marcos since December 2nd, 2015. The I-35 rivalry against UTSA on Friday night did not disappoint, absolutely not. We had players like Brandon Love with his second double-double of the season. He matched his career high with 18 points and set a new career best of 14 rebounds. He also blocked 4 shots to give him 9 rejections over the last 2 games. And another player I want to highlight is Christian Turner. He led all scorers with a career high of 19 points and 4 of 8 shooting while knocking down 10 of 12 free throw attempts. The junior also had 5 rebounds and 2 assists.
Yeah, and I know the free throw, Texas State over the final 20 minutes, they shot 37 shots from that free throw line and knocked down 21 of them, which made it 27 out of 43. So it was the most free throws taken in a game since shooting 55 against Our Lady of the Lake in 2010.
After that, Texas State Bobcats went to Louisiana Tech for the Louisiana Tech MTE to take on McNeese in Southern Utah. Unfortunately, they lost to McNeese 59-48, even though Caden Gumby had 13 points. The whole game, Texas State was just playing catch-up as McNeese never looked back. Even when they would cut it short, McNeese would be there to keep the lead.
Yeah, following that loss came another loss from Southern Utah, being the score 74-67, which is now making Texas State 2-4 with their final record. But I know there were a couple of players who were still doing their best. Caden Gums with the first career double-double of 15 points and 10 rebounds. But it would be the first time that the Thunderbirds would come out on top at their center.
The next one that we're going to highlight is the Texas State Bobcats going up against UT Arlington Mavericks. They took the win there, thankfully, 73-66. They are now improving to a 3-4 record here at home. And it's really cool to see players like we said, Caden Gums with 11 points while dishing out a career high and 8 assists. And a player we haven't mentioned, Joshua O'Garo, he was limited to 6 points but grabbed 8 boards and was still credited with 4 steals.
And then finally, the last game for Texas State basketball for men's team is the Texas State versus UT game, November 30th. This was an away game, final scoring being 58-77 loss. Unfortunate. It's been really a back and forth for the wins and losses for the team. Dylan Dawson with 15 points, Brandon Love, which Brandon Love has just been a key player. We've been really seeing him these last couple of games being one of the lead scorers, being a junior here at Texas State, and with him having 14 points. So he's been absolutely a key player for this team. Just looking at this, the Texas State free throw percentage, 50% of 7 of 14 compared to UT's 14 of 20, also being 70%. But I mean, whenever it comes down to it, they were able to get those. They were able to get more free throws, and they were able to get that lead, and they were able to keep that lead for basically the entire game. And then also UT getting those defensive and offensive rebounds at 42, just being absolutely impressive for that team to be able. And whenever you're able to get those rebounds, there's just so much more potential and opportunity that you're able to have for the team. And for their next game for men's basketball will be Texas State versus Jarvis Christian. This will be December 11th at 7 p.m. and this will be their next home game. They haven't really had a whole lot of home games other than that UTSA home game, so make sure to show up December 11th. This is kind of during that winter break though, so if you're still around San Marcos, then that's a really great opportunity, but that'll also be at Strahan Arena. So let's get into the recap. With the recap, with this being kind of leading into that winter break, as I just mentioned, we're going to be kind of closing it off for a lot of these sports, with volleyball now being done, and then football having a break for that until bowl. They're able to determine what bowl they have. So, but for the recap, we have for women's basketball, as we mentioned earlier, Texas State versus UNT Dallas, December 3rd at 3 p.m. This is a home game. Then we have the bowl destination will be determined for the Texas State football team, December 3rd. And then finally, we have men's basketball, Texas State versus Jarvis Christian at December 11th, 7 p.m. home game at Strahan Arena. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining us at today's episode of the Weekly Bobcat Bulletin. As I wrap up, remember to subscribe to the Bobcat Bulletin YouTube channel so you can stay updated on all things Texas State athletics. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great finals week and winter break.